Always thrilled that this guy's joining the program, certainly on this day, because A, there's so much to talk about, and B, because our studio lights are down. We'll take any light, white or green, and the host of Green Light with Chris Long here back on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Chris? Good to see you.
What's up, Rich? How y'all doing?
Well, I mean, we're dealing with some lighting issues in our studio, but we're still going, you know.
So I'm also dealing with some lighting issues, man. I got to close the windows or something. I'm looking kind of washed out.
We'll take some of that. If you can bundle that up and send it all the way across the country here to Los Angeles, we'll take anything right now. But it's all good.
I can't help.
All right, Chris, let's just jump right into it. Are the Lions the team to beat in your estimation, based on what you've seen over the last month, and especially on Sunday night? What do you think?
Are the Lions the team to beat in the NFC?
Is that an imitation? Is that an imitation?
No, I'm not doing it.
Be careful.
Did I pick something up here?
Be careful.
No, Rich, right off the bat, they're going to be like Chris Long picks the Lions to win the Super Bowl. No, I mean, the team to beat, what does that mean? They're the number one seed in the NFC. They have home field advantage. They earned it. It feels like at every turn in the road where we've doubted them through, the injuries, you think maybe that the other shoe's going to drop. They're not what you think they are. They seem to be what we thought they were. And that is probably the most complete team in the NFC. Like, you could argue that Philly's got the better roster top to bottom. But I do think Jared Goff, the way he's played this year, gives them a little bit of an edge in that respect. And obviously home field advantage. Now, Philly could certainly beat that team if they play their best ball. And I think Minnesota would probably look a lot better than they did in that second matchup there. I mean, like, if you're Minnesota, you're probably getting home and saying, hey, listen, look between the 20s. We can compete with this team. We got down there in the red zone and played our worst game. And the quarterback, who's been good against the blitz this year, really struggled. I think Detroit has been the most consistent team in the league. They've gotten back on the horse after that Buffalo loss. They got back on the horse after an early loss early in the season. They've continued to replace people on defense. The job that Aaron Glenn has done has been incredible. I thought he called maybe his best game of the season, and he saved it for the right spot the other night. Yeah, like, Anzalone's back. Hard to go into the playoffs and give anybody else that title of the team to beat when they got home field advantage and the best record.
Well, I mean, the best team, the team to beat is definitely the team that you think is best. That, I guess that's the phrase that pays right there. I mean, because you could sit here and say the Chiefs are the team to beat because they're the one seed, or you think the Bills or the Ravens are better. Like that.
But there's no team to beat this year. There's too many good teams. I really do believe that. This thing's wide open. Like, in the NFC, I think it's all in the AFC, it's all matchup predicated, honestly. Like, I could see a path for Kansas City winning it. I could see a path for Baltimore winning it. I could see a path for Buffalo winning it. And I can say the same thing about a couple of the teams in the NFC as well. But it kind of all depends on who they play and where they play them. I think when you get into the playoffs, you can look at each game individually and pick each game individually. But unless you know how that tree is going to sort out, and, is Team X going to see probably their worst matchup at some point, or are they not going to see their worst matchup? I think a lot of the times it comes down to that. So team to beat, I'm sorry, Rich, I'm just not crazy about that.
All right, so let me give you, while you're not crazy about that, let me throw another sports talk radio one at you, because that's our conversation we're having today. The playoff team we're not talking about enough that can go on a run.
That's a very good one.
Okay.
That's a very good one.
All right, Chris.
As I go down the list, I think, the Packers have not earned the right to have that title. They haven't won any of their big games. They're kind of limping into the playoffs. I think the Commanders, the way they can get hot, can certainly ruin a team's day. Like, Philly, they could certainly say if Jalen Hurts is on the field and match up to win that game. But at the same time, Jaden Daniels, and a lot of it was the Eagles' mistakes, kind of torched them. So that's a dangerous team. I think the Bucs are really dangerous offensively, but the defense has kind of tapered off as the year's gone on due to some injuries. I think the Rams are always dangerous, right? And when I talk about matchups, a lot of it is matchups. Like, the Rams don't want to play the Eagles. But other than that, I think they'll go toe-to-toe with anybody in the NFC. So I think the Rams are one of those scary kind of teams. And then the AFC, I think the Chargers, as much as I wanted to handicap them due to the lack of weapons on offense and that sort of thing, you can see Quentin Johnson pop up and have a really good game here and there. Like if that guy goes off in a playoff game, if they can get something out of, a second receiver other than Lab McConkey, they can muddy something up for like a Kansas City. I don't know if they can beat Kansas City. They're going to be a fun team to watch in the playoffs, as well as, you know, it really could be any of them. We've seen that in the past where a team will go on a run and get into the dance, and it's just about like when you play that team, not the team that you're playing, but when you play that team. So teams will get hot and get in the playoffs and surprise some people. So, just going down the list, outlining some of those teams, I think there's a couple that you could argue could make a run to the Super Bowl that are not division winners.
So you say the Rams don't want to see the Eagles because Saquon's still running all over them, or they
The
would have
size
to
of
go.
that front, the
Is that it?
size of that front. Like I think the Rams defensive front's a lot of fun. They're young. They're productive. I love Jared Verse. Fisk, I thought, probably could have gone to the Pro Bowl the way he played this year. And you know, Young, Turner, the Rams, they're just a little light up front to face up with a Philly front like that. We already saw what that looks like in LA. I'm not saying it would happen the exact same way, but as that game went on, they kind of got worn down. I think LA is probably the answer to your question, but I'm just kind of illustrating the fact that like there is a team that they'd probably not want to see, and it goes the same for pretty much anybody. And I think honestly, if you're talking about a team to beat, like who's the best team playing the best at the end of the season, it's the Ravens, in my opinion. I think the Chiefs made a jump at the end of the season when they got some of their guys back offensively and they opened up the offense a little bit, moved Joe Tooney to left tackle. That's a big deal. But I think the Ravens, pending Zay Flowers' injury, to answer the question a different way, are playing the best out of the good teams going into the playoffs.
Chris Long here. Everybody check out Greenlight Pod with Chris Long and Inside the NFL on the CW right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Were you surprised that the Kraft family joined the One and Done Club, Chris?
I guess I'm not surprised, but I do think he kind of stepped in it. Like, there we all know it's really hard for black coaches to get jobs in the NFL, like head jobs. History has shown that. I mean, I think it's getting better, but there's a lot of work to be done still. And yeah, Gerard Mayo, who is a draft class mate of mine, like we're the same damn age, and I'm so excited watching him get a job. It was a short path for him to get that job, but they didn't really give him a chance. And they didn't invest in that team in free agency. Like anybody could have seen, like Bill Belichick won what, 5 games his first year. I'm not saying Mayo was going to be Bill, but I think unfortunately for Gerard, it ended up being a thing where Mike Vrabel's out there. And I think Robert Kraft made a messy decision a couple years ago, trying to kind of not trying to clip his wings and saying, hey, you got to stay here, but almost operating out of FOMO. Like if this guy leaves and he's a great coach, I'm going to feel really bad about it. So I'm going to do this guy a solid. But really what you're doing is you're hoarding the coach, and then you give the coach 1 year to succeed. And like, I don't know when he gets another opportunity like this. So, I think it culminates in another messy decision where you're like, hey, I was trying to do a solid by Gerard. And I think Robert's a great guy and has been a really good owner for, obviously a long time. But I felt like post Tom Brady and post Bill, it's definitely more of a strain to make these decisions. Like you're used to making decisions with this long runway. And I think part of the being naive enough to think, hey, we can make a 5-year decision on who Bill's successor is, and then to accelerate the timeline on Bill's demise in New England yourself, and then lament the fact that Gerard actually, in retrospect, didn't have enough time. Well, you sped that clock up, So I think it was just a messy decision, and it leads to another messy decision where you got to fire a guy after 1 year, and that's never a good thing. Like we whoever the coach is over the past 10, 20 years, anytime a guy gets fired in the first year, which is kind of an increasing trend, like everybody's going to look at you a little sideways. But he can definitely find the right guy. I mean, I think you can net out and find yourself the right coach and be in a better situation. But it does suck for Gerard Mayo, who took that job, and it wasn't a highly desirable job. I know they used to play there and everything, and they don't really invest in the team. The team's not great, and a year later, He's on the street. But, you know, I do think if the defense was better, he might still be there, because I do think part of the dynamic is like Robert doesn't want he doesn't want to fire Bill and then watch the defense get worse and people say, oh, well, we miss Bill. Like, there's still some of that there. I think ultimately those press conference gaffes and whatnot, and you know what the fans thought, which is something that Robert Kraft's made abundantly clear, that he does listen to the pulse of the fan base and that sort of thing, and he is a fan himself. Like, that factored in. So I think it's just another instance of an owner making a very human decision. I'm not saying he did it with any ill intent, but it was messy and it wasn't thought through. And once you put that clause in his contract and then you fire Bill a little bit before maybe you thought you'd let him go, what do you think's going to happen? The guy's only been coaching 4 or 5 years. You give him a job, it only lasts a year. You don't invest in the team. It's just a crappy situation for Gerard Mayo. But I do think that's a desirable job. I would just say this, like, just because Vrabel is on the menu and McDaniel's name's been thrown around, like, I'm not saying I know a lot by being there for a year, but what I am saying is like a media member and somebody who's watched that program kind of rise and fall, so to speak. Like, the Patriot way isn't something you just snap your fingers and get. Like, it's not like, oh, we're going to hire Mike and it's going to go back to like what it was, or Josh, you get the band together. Like, you have to open the search, and I think they will, to people like Ben Johnson. Like, at some point you have to move on from the past. You can still retain some of those qualities that made those teams great, some of the culture touch points, but like, to me, it's a little bit short-sighted to just be like, hey, we have the privilege of hiring only the people we truly trust in this building, which is the way they did things for a long time. But you don't have that privilege anymore. You don't have Tom Brady. You don't have Bill Belichick. So I think you got to open that search, and you can't cling too tightly to the past. But yeah, the decision for Gerard to coach a year kind of sucks. And I'm not saying Robert Kraft's a bad guy or a bad owner, but I think it was a really messy decision, and he steps in it because of the black coach thing, which is a reality.
Chris Long here on the Rich Eisen Show. Put yourself in the Dolphins locker room, hearing Tyreek Hill's post-game comments. Walk me through it, Chris.
We're all independent contractors, right? We were texting about this the other night. You
Yep.
were like, you were taken aback by the quotes after the game.
I sure was. They gave up a lot to get him. They paid him top of the market. He had 1,700-yard seasons 2 years in a row. He was the first overall selection by his peers in the top 100 of the NFL. So he was able to have that in his on his resume. And then all this happens, and he's like, deuces, I'm out. Chris?
Well, so I think, you know, the immediate questions I've heard are like, how can you forgive him? Like, if you're a teammate, well, you don't have to. If you're a teammate, he's not your teammate anymore. You know,
not yet. Not yet.
No,
I mean, he's not Jimmy Butler. This isn't the NBA where you say I want out and you get out. It's very rare. I know Devontae Adams kind of did that in a way, but
well, you could say, hey, he can't do that. Yes, he can, because somebody's going to want Tyreek Hill on their team next year. So unless you're telling me nobody's going to trade for the guy, and I think he knows that like there would be a market for him, he's not going to say something like that. And by saying that, you kind of draw a line in the sand where you know that, like, if everybody in the building knows you don't want to be there. And this is the thing about coaches and organizations. I remember sitting in meeting rooms and locker rooms, and coaches and organizations, you know, they used to love the saying, like, if you don't want to be here, leave. And then of course, like, a guy will say, I don't want to be here. Like, and it's going to be hard to get rid of him because of the number, but he's Tyreek Hill. Like, somebody's going to want to throw the ball at Tyreek Hill next year. He's still got it. You know, so I would say, like, for me, it's hard for me to get outraged because we've moved sports into this territory. Like, it has just moved this way over a number of years where, like, you can ask me what it'd be like to be his teammate, but I don't really know. I can tell you I'd probably be like, oh, he quit on us. But as somebody sitting here in this chair doing the job I'm doing now, like, I'm not going to feign outrage when, you know, that's the way sports are now. Everybody has an easy way out now, you know, and I hate to sound old school, but that's what it is. And, you know, like, when I used to play and walk uphill 6 miles in the snow, I'm just joking, like, because it wasn't like I played in the 80s or 90s when things were hard, but like, loyalty was a little bit more of a thing. And yeah, sure, you had holdouts and people that were trying to, that were trying to make things right with their contract or get paid what they were owed. But like for a guy to just say, hey, I want out of Kansas City, go to Miami, spend a couple years there and see that, hey, it is a lot more fun winning. Well, there are consequences to that. Generally, you have to kind of play out your contract. But in today's day and age, like you can say, hey, how could we forgive him? We will forgive him. We will be on this show next year talking about, wow, what a catch by Tyreek Hill. It's so fun to watch Jaden Daniels throw him a deep ball because nobody in Miami could throw a damn deep ball the last couple of years. And, another thing is, you talk about Miami as the greatest show on turf. Well, why does he want to leave?
Great question. Great question. I said it had to be about money. Is what I thought.
It's definitely about money. I mean, he definitely wants a new deal and that sort of thing. And I think being 30 and being a skill guy and, kind of now counting the years and saying like, how many more years do I have in this window to earn? And I know people are like, well, he just got paid a bunch of money, but if I'm not mistaken, 26 is not guaranteed.
I believe you're correct. But be that as it may, he's definitely entering the backside of the contract that the Dolphins gave him.
But
that's why I asked you to put yourself in the locker room. You know what I mean? Because you just spilled your guts out, hoping against hope, and you're staring up at the scoreboard watching Bo Nix run it up on the Chiefs, knowing that this thing's not going to happen. And as soon as it's over, and you're watching the Jets celebrate Aaron Rodgers' 500th career touchdown pass, I understand things are raw, but, he's the only one that said, I don't want to be here anymore. And there might be other people who feel the same way.
I've had a bunch of teammates quit, like, not maybe out in the public or, they've done things that have kind of been traitorous, things that, from an effort standpoint, from a commitment standpoint, like people quit on their teams all the time. And, just this guy happens to be a guy that is one of the best in the world. And, for somebody like him who's got all the money in the world and he's on a contract where he's getting paid a ton more, it's really hard for people to kind of figure that one out. But I just think that's the way sports are going, man. Like if I was his teammate, obviously I'd be like, what a quitter. Like, bro, we were just in this playoff run. Like we had a chance to get in like 15 minutes ago, and all of a sudden you're just walking off after the last game. But I can't put myself in those shoes because I'm not in that locker room. I don't know everything that's going on. I know as a media member, this is just the way it is now. And like, unless we're going to protest every Tyreek Hill highlight in the future, I'm not going to sit up here on a soapbox and be like, oh, what a quitter. Sports is full of quitters now.
The consistency of Chris Long. It's very, very inspiring. You inspire me, sir.
But what do you guys think?
No, I exactly what I texted you. I said right into this microphone, albeit a little bit better lit yesterday, that yes, I am, stunned by it. And I mean, offended obviously is a strong word because it's not my locker room. And
you can be offended, Rich.
But because I don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes there.
Hey, Chris, I want him on the Patriots next year. Let's go.
Well, I mean, how'd that work out for Antonio
Chris,
Brown?
who cares?
How'd that work out for you with Antonio Brown? And he did you see
it was great for one game.
Did you
not comparable? I just want to say this: AB and Tyreek not comparable, just with the kind of the history of like the on the field stuff. Where
no, I know that, Chris, but the only reason why I bring that up is two reasons. One, because it's yet another receiver doing something in MetLife Stadium. I don't know what it is about that. But two, if you look at his Twitter avatar,
he changed it to AB.
Yeah, he put his face on Brown taking his jersey off at MetLife.
And what happened when AB took it? What happened when AB took his jersey off at MetLife?
He was done.
Half of the internet loved it.
Yeah, but where is he now? He's doing what CTESPN.
Yeah,
talking about what's going on in the television business right now.
He seems to get great engagement. I mean, that's what the world is now, bro. Like it's just clout. Everything's clout. Everything's about quitting. There's no loyalty. We spent so long being pro player that we didn't know where to draw the line. And I'm so pro player. I'm so pro player movement. I'm pro players, making more money, more guaranteed money. I'm befuddled half the time when people take the side of the owners in these negotiations and, all that stuff. And I hate seeing, in a sport where there's 100% injury, that guys get locked into these crappy contracts and teams can cut them whenever they want, no questions asked. Is it fair? No. But currently is what we signed up to do. And I wouldn't even put Tyreek Hill on the side of the sliding scale where I feel bad for a player.
Yeah.
So, we asked for it. This is what we get. I mean, seriously, we all want to be so pro player and pro, we don't want to, at the risk of not sounding progressive in the world of sports, and now we're here where all of a sudden even the most progressive of us are like, the whole transfer portal thing's crazy.
I know that. Yeah.
Like the NIL stuff's gotten out of control. Or, Tyreek Hill can walk in the locker room after a game and say, I'm quitting. Well, I mean, who are we to tell a player where he has to play football, right? Isn't that
absolutely?
It's just like, what do you expect? We forgive this stuff all the time, and we will.
Chris, I will.
Rich, I will. Next year, I'm going to be like, oh, Tyreek Hill. This is a lot of fun to watch. Jaden Daniels throwing the ball.
Everybody, check out the final episode of Green Light with Chris Long podcast before he turns it into the Unwoke podcast with Chris Long. Ladies and gentlemen, you're the best, Chris.
See what I mean? All right, take it easy.
Everybody, check it out. Chris Long and the Green Light with Chris Long podcast, the one and only. I just love when he comes on. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.